Biblical parenting in today's world is considered politically incorrect, sadly and wrongly. Today I'm going to show you the consequences of modern parenting above biblical parenting. So let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to Reason for Truth. I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo. Here, the truth comes first, the reasons come last, but we're always and constantly learning. So we stop learning, we stop teaching, or at least stop teaching well. And that goes for today's subject. Yep, it's about parents. I'll probably have some people disagree with me. I'm old school. I'm biblical school when it comes to parenting. That means respect. It means discipline. Sometimes that means punishment. It means not being friends with your parents. It means being a parent to your children. Most parents in the 21st century sadly struggle with what it means to properly parent their children. And sometimes it's understandable, especially if your kids are going to public schools, which I don't recommend any longer. The vast majority of parents want to be friends with their kids. And as a result, they avoid being tough and applying proper discipline, which is seen as old school in our modern age. In contrast, God warns us in His Word, all throughout the Bible, by the way, that failure to parent biblically leads only to harm to the child and really harm to the family, and a failure on our part to properly parent. Now, I'm going to tell you, I had one bad to the bone mom, and my wife's a great mom. We don't play in our house. We have a lot of grace, but by the same token, we have consequences. We don't take disrespect, and when we ask for something, we expect it to get done. Okay? Again, not like military, but we do have grace on our children, but we also have expectations, and we expect that to be met, and with respect. Today, I want to take a look at Eli the Priest, 1 Samuel. This has always baffled me. He was very successful in his ministry, in his vocation. And you see this a lot today. See a lot of top speakers. You want to look at the top speakers like that. I know a lot of them. I'm just not here to cast a stone. I'm a speaker too. I'm not as big. I think what it takes to be the biggest and the best and the baddest always takes a sacrifice. That's my point. And nothing wrong with that, as long as you don't sacrifice your children and your family. If you do that, I'm just telling you, you're wrong. Because there's no difference between corporate success and biblical success if it comes at the cost of your family. Because God gave you a family. If God gave you a wife, you're not to ignore her. Take her along with you. Now, there is going to be sacrifices, but it certainly shouldn't be sacrifice of the marriage, and it's sacrifice to the children to the point where there's grave consequences because you've given everything out and you've not given to your own children. You're here to call you. Listen, if you have a family, raise your children first before you travel, 50, 75, 100% of the time. It doesn't mean you can't travel, just limit it. All right, enough of that. Now you're getting off my bailiwick over here. But again, I want to take a look at Eli the Priest in 1 Samuel because I think he gives us kind of a good glimpse into, and I think a balanced look at what happens when we put business or we put anything, any kind of success or endeavor, certainly even ministry as vocation in front of the things that God calls us to as first ministry, which are always the things like family and children. And as a result, Eli's two sons, you know what happened to them? That's right. You remember, they were put to death by God Himself, most probably ended up in hell as opposed to heaven. But this begs the question as to why were Eli's sons both put to death? Well, they were both priests. I don't know why they were priests. They were priests because they were Eli's sons. We see a lot of that today too, favoritism, nepotism. Sadly, Eli should have booted his own sons out. Yeah, you say, well, what would you have done, Steve? If my kids were acting like that, I would not defile God's. If I was a priest or I was a pastor and I had my children working in the church and they were not acting rightly and not seeking God, they'd be out. They'd be on. Wouldn't love them any less. So I'd want to see them come to know the Lord. But his sons were both priests, and they were both his sons were morally and literally abusive with their authority in light of their own pleasure and their own benefit. Now, Eli was very old and kept hearing all that his sons were doing to all Israel and how they lay with the women who they were serving at the entrance of the tent of meeting. 1 Samuel 2:22. Furthermore, they, by force, they took the raw meat. People didn't even want to give them the raw meat because they knew it was against the law, God's law for the people of Israel. Before it was cooked or even seared in a pan, they took it. They wanted to do what they wanted to do with it. The law mandated, and by the way, what happened is the priests had a right to go in and but when the meat, once it was boiled, they had a right to feed themselves, kind of like how they ate. They could stick a fork in the meat, and whatever stuck on the fork, they can eat that. That's why that was in there, and that was designed by God to go ahead to provide for the priests so that they didn't, I don't think they were really super high paid people, if paid at all. So that's one way that people supported the priests. And listen, people were more than happy to help the priests and give them the food, but do so according to God's law, not their own. They wanted the meat so they could cook it the way they wanted to do it, just raw. For whatever reasons, they just broke the law. But the law mandated that the priests could go to the homes of the people and put, again, his fork into the meat and pull out whatever stuck on that fork. And they just did that before it even boiled. So people were happy to share again with the priest as the law commanded. But Eli's two sons, priests, they were priests, mandated that the meat they took be given to them without being cooked, which was the abomination of the law of the Lord. The bottom line is that Eli's sons both abused the office of priest for their own pleasure and gain. In response, God said the following to Samuel, his prophet, regarding Eli's two sons. On that day I will fulfill against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house, from beginning to the end. And I declare to him that I am about to punish his house forever for the iniquity that he knew, because his sons were blaspheming God, and he did not restrain them. 1 Samuel 3, chapter 3, verses 12 to 13. Some key things in there. What happened? God's declaring, number one. That's what he says. He says, I'm about to punish your house forever. What does that mean? It means Eli had sons who were priests. It is a big honor for them to be priests. And if they would have acted rightly, got married, had children, their children would be allowed to be priests. That's what the forever means, until someone messed up. In this case, his own sons messed up, so it was a short-lived dynasty, the priesthood there. And it says, for the iniquity that he knew. Eli knew what was going on. But what did he do? Well, it says, because his sons were blaspheming God, and he did not restrain them. At the very least, he should have restrained them. But he failed. You have to wonder, where was he? Was he just soft? Or was he just out doing priestly things and not present? I don't know. Bible doesn't tell us that. All I know is he didn't do what he... Now, Eli was a great priest. That I'm going to give him. I'm just speaking from a parental perspective. He failed in that way. He's a human being. People say, oh, you said that about a biblical character. Yeah, all of us mess up, and every biblical character outside of Jesus messed up. Telling you. All of us are imperfect except for Jesus. So what did God mean by telling Samuel that Eli, as a father, parent, Eli, he actually said failed to restrain, right? Let's just break that down. His two sons were high priests, right? The word restrain, according to the dictionary.com, means to hold back from action, keep in check or under control. So, first of all, as a parent, he failed to do any of those things. The word translated restrain, to go a little further, occurs only here in the Hebrew Bible. It suggests a rebuke and sets things right by God. That's what was supposed to have taken place. And at the very least, Eli could have tried to assertively to bring correction upon his son, to restrain his sons. Certainly, in their office of priesthood, he should have at least alleviated them of their jobs, and then relieved both of them and put better, more godly men in there as priests, had they not complied with what Eli should have told them and how to act. Eli could have simply given the role to more godly men. Sadly, we still see this legacy in our world today, in the church and in business and in life, sometimes families, playing out much the same way in many churches and families today. So, listen, but to his credit, Eli brought the issue up to his sons, but he failed to discipline them, to relieve them of the office of the priesthood. And they had gross biblical, moral violations. But I do credit Eli, because I think he tried to do the right thing. I just don't think he was assertive enough. And remember, now Eli was very old, and he kept hearing all that his sons were doing to all Israel, and how they lay with the women who were serving at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And he said to them, why do you do such things? For I hear of your evil dealings with all the people. No, my sons, it is not a good report that I hear in the people of the Lord spreading abroad. If someone sins against a man, this is what Eli's telling his sons. If someone sins against a man, God will mediate for him. But if someone sins against the Lord, who can intercede for him but they wouldn't listen to his voice or of the voice of their father. For it was the will of the Lord to put them to death. 1 Samuel 2:22-25. Before you get upset and say, oh, just God made them be bad. No, God didn't make them be bad. They were bad to begin with. And then I think God kind of just said he knew they wouldn't change, and he just gave them full on to their own depravity. That's what happened. 1 Samuel 2:22-25. Read it for yourself. And in conclusion, in verse 12, God makes clear that from the beginning to the end that God's judgment would extend from the death of Eli's sons and continue the whole prophecy given to Samuel by the man of God in chapter 2, 27-36. That was all fulfilled. And in verse 13, God makes abundantly clear that what God said. He says, I have told him. In other words, the message was given through the anonymous man of God, 2:27-36 again, through Samuel and Eli. God makes this clear. He says, I will judge, meaning that no descendants of Eli would serve as priests ever again because they made themselves vile. Eli's sons were supposed to have been esteemed priests of God, examples for the whole community, but they turned out to be spoiled brats privileged into disaster. And as for Eli's failure to properly parent, well, he didn't restrain them. Don't forget, he was really, really old. I'll give that to him. But still, my mom's 87. And my mom will give it to me if I need be. She will, still at her age. Now, she can't put me in timeout anymore, but she'll let me know what she says. She's all Sicilian. Eli was a good man and a wonderful high priest, but personal failure as a father and as a parent. Many today will say that such a statement, Steve, is mean-hearted and critical. Okay, the question is it true? I mean, that's the truth. The failure to be honest with oneself, take the energy to raise their children biblically is a violation of God's word. And the reason why the United States and so many cultures around the world, but really especially the United States, children are suffering because they're not properly, kept in line and disciplined. Most parents in the 21st century struggle with what it means to properly parent their children. My mom used to say to me, all the time she'd say, it hurts me more than it does you. And I didn't understand that until I became a parent, fully understand that until I became a parent. And I tell my kids that it hurts more me to discipline you. It takes more energy. And you know what that means? It takes more love, because it's easy to let your kids do what they want to do or to be their friend. Easy road out. I don't make any bones about that. If that's what you're doing, please stop. Become a parent. Sadly, we can't often give what we don't have. So if your parent didn't parent you rightly, you're not going to know what that looks like. It's not in your DNA. I was blessed with that. But, let's make sure that we look to other people that are strong, good biblical parents who are balanced, that don't get too angry. If they need to bring sense to you, they'll do that. Let's look to God's word here as we wrap this up. First, as to how to parent rightly. The consequences are high in that we risk losing the next generation, folks. And in the end, failure to parent biblically leads only to harm to the children and failure on the part of our parents. And that's the bottom line. Let's make sure that we're parenting biblically, not according to some psychology book or something, or perhaps even parents that raised us poorly. Let's be aware of that. You can eat the meat, leave the bones. Take the good things your parents taught us. No parent's perfect. My mom wasn't perfect, and I certainly am not perfect. My dad wasn't perfect, but I certainly am not perfect. But I'm there, and I strive for perfection. And in that way, I can at least hit being a great parent. If I strive to be a great parent, I'm going to be less of a great parent. So shoot high here. And the best way to do that is the perfect word of God. And that's all I have for you today. Hope this has been helpful for you. Hope it's inspired. I hope it's moved you to think more about parenting biblically. Hey, listen, if you want to learn more and be inspired, perhaps about biblical parenthood, about just how to live every day in God's word, and a little bit of apologetics in there as well, come on over. I want to invite you to join my community at stephengarofalo.com. I'll put a little link for that below. And then make sure, please, go ahead and like and subscribe, and then hit the little alert bell down there. Listen, if you like and subscribe and you join us, that's going to at least hit that little like button and subscribe. You're going to help us get our algorithms up. You know who that helps? The Word of God. These messages go out more. It's a simple thing. Just go ahead and knock it out. That's going to get more likes, more views, and we don't get paid for that. You know what we do? God gets more exposure for that. He's going to bless you. He's going to bless me every time we do things that help spread His Word, whether that's directly or indirectly in our lives. So God's blessings to you. Thanks for tuning in. Join my community. Like and subscribe. I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo. Until next time, this is your Reason for Truth for today.